Mr. Snow here, taking you to the lesson on Frederick McCubbin, the painter that we've been looking at for the last few weeks, and we're going to focus on the painting Down on His Luck, which over the last few weeks we've done an art appreciation topic, which we've looked at how Frederick McCubbin in his paintings looked at creating distance in his pictures and really tried to emphasise how vast the land was in Australia and in Australian landscape. So the way he did that was using different colours with their shading and their light and the intensity of each colour. So we're going to look at that in the lesson today and how we can do it as a classroom and how we can try and really use his techniques to improve our art and our art understanding of how he did it. Other issues in Down in His Luck that we've looked at was how he used colours to create emotion in a picture and a mood. And what he did was he'd intensify the colours in the foreground to really, and they were a bit darker than most of his paintings, because as we saw in the picture or the painting that we've been studying, is that he it was trying to really create that melancholy, sombre feeling, because back in the early settlers, as we've looked at, it was a pretty harsh time, and so by using different colours we can really emphasise that in a painting. So what we're going to do is we've got all our items here. If you just want to have a look across, we've got our paints, we've got our green, we've got our brown, and we've got our white. And we're just going to use those colours pretty basically to make our shade. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to get our green colour with our brush. You might need a couple of brushes. We're just going to put that on a mixing spot, on a mixing plate. Don't be shy, get it in there. We're then going to grab another paintbrush, get a bit of white there. The reason I'm going to do this is because I'm going to show you how you can mix paints together to create different shades of green. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you quite basically, we're just going to use a bit of green, paint it on to show a top of a tree here. Now obviously skill levels are going to differ, but if you can get the general idea here that a tree that's close up is going to have a bit more colour, a bit more detail than one that's far away. So as you can see, we're painting. You can use different techniques. Now this is just slow, strong brush strokes, and you can create a tree like that. Looks more like a tropical tree, this one, but it's okay. You can try and mix it up a little bit by just adding some different strokes in like this, by tapping on there. Gives it a different texture. You can do quick things like this, all of which is perfectly fine when you're trying to create some colour in a painting. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when you mix a bit of colours together. So mixing just the white and the green, plenty in there. Now if we're trying to create a tree in the distance, obviously it's not going to be quite as vibrant, the colour, because there's a bit of distance there. So what we're going to do is I'll show you here. See, it's still green, but just not that same sort of green. Not that same vibrancy, which if we touch on that second point, as I said earlier about emotion, this is much more in your face, this green. So it gives you the audience an opportunity to try and work out what was he trying to say when he was painting it with such intensity. Was he trying to say that it's a sad feeling, or is he trying? It's up to the audience to interpret that, but it does give you that opportunity. Now you can add shades and things like that. So you might want to grab your white one, and you can add texture to a tree by simply just putting a little bit of white through it. Doesn't look particularly great here, but that's not what art's about. It's about trying to create something that's in your head and your interpretation. So you can say anything there, just mixing it in, and so that really is what we're about. And when we're doing the actual tree, again, the woody part, as you'd say, you can get a big bit of brown, pop it on the page there, on the mixing plate. Again, if we're going to try and create a really nice brown here. See, that's very strong colour, really obvious that it's a tree. And you can change that up again, different texture. You can do that sort of technique. You can use the other end of your paintbrush to add some lines, to add a bit of emotion to the tree. There's all different techniques you can use. Now see what we do when we mix with a bit of white. Might need a little bit more white. And as we were doing before, the brown up the end, it changes again. See, the tones are a lot softer in the distance photo. So if you looked up at this painting, you could almost see that this painting here is right up close, whereas this one, less detail and less colour. The vibrancy is not the same as the one below. So that really is a technique that McCubbin used to try and emphasise the distance in the picture. So as you can see, in this lesson we've gone through a few different things, a few different techniques, the use of mixing colours together. You're going to need a few different apparatus to perform this lesson. You're going to need a few different colours of green. You can use a whole different varieties of techniques. You can even use your fingers to manipulate the colours as well. So there's a lot of different ways that artists do implement their techniques to try and change up what they're trying to send in the message of the painting. Here's one that I've done earlier. You can see that there's a bit more detail in this one. There's a lot more darker colours, different brush strokes to show moving trees, and this one here, in the distance, exactly the same tree, but you just don't have that same sort of detail. Okay. Now, as part of the lesson, we're going to ask the children what they enjoyed about the lesson and what they think they got out of it, and what they saw in the lesson was reflective of Down on his luck and how they could appreciate the art that we've looked at. So the children will now get 15 minutes to do the lesson, and as an audience, we'll talk about it together. And that concludes the lesson about Down on his luck and how McCubbin painted it. Thank you very much.